go into this with what's spicy, and you know where I'm going with this to start. Gunnar Henderson is not on the Gold Glove list as a straight position, playing short or third, or even as a utility. And safe to say, I think people in Birdland aren't particularly happy about that omission, to say the least.
No, not at all. I think the biggest issue a lot of people are having with it is, third base and shortstop. He went back and forth. We knew it was going to be tough for him to get one of those because of how much he went back and forth. But wasn't that why the utility position was made? Like, that's to avoid this situation. We made a whole separate category for them. And then they still didn't get it. So it was weird because in my head, I kind of wrapped around. I was like, okay, the reason they didn't give it to him was because he's not a utility player. He's too big of a name. They want to give it to the gritty guys who go out there every day and play 5-6 positions. And then the NL comes out with Mookie Betts on it. And I was like, that just throws that whole argument out the window. So I honestly don't know. I mean, when you look at defensive runs saved, he's miles above the other three that got nominated. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I kind of am starting to wonder if the Gold Glove Award actually means anything at this point. The award itself is a bit diminished after this season.
Yeah, I think another thing is when you look at the first base category, Ryan Mountcastle and Anthony Rizzo. Mountcastle played 115 games this year. Rizzo played 99. So you could definitely see in areas where namesake got guys on the list. But yeah, I agree. I don't think the Gold Glove means as much as it used to.
Yeah, I think, well, I shouldn't say this. Well, I will say this, not that I shouldn't. It's definitely the value's different. And usually it was looked at as, you need to play X amount of games. You got to go out there and help your team save runs, make impactful plays, and then usually the stats you have it to back it up, right? That's usually how it goes. Yeah. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if you have the best stats that you're automatically going to get the Gold Glove, right? If it really, because it's a voting, right? So it's who the voters are attributing who's making plays, and not saying that this is, I don't agree with this, but how you make the plays sometimes goes from whether you make the routine plays or make them look flashy. That's another element that goes into it. And sometimes it's recency bias. Gunnar's so young and not having a position, I think that hurt him, and people looked at him so much as an offensive player that they forget if you don't watch the Orioles on a day-to-day basis, you're not going to sit there and look at the play that we just showed or the one that's over the shoulder in Arizona and seeing his game evolve, right? So you're right in the sense that there's a certain name that gets associated. And look, I love Mounty's defense, by the way. I think it's so underrated, but I was surprised just because of the amount of time that he missed. And with those games played, it wasn't all playing first. He was DHing quite a bit. So then you're sitting there going, well, wait a minute, what really is the position? Again, all deserving. But also leads into another point. We're talking about name recognition that probably changed from this. Zach, there's one omission from the list now that all he's done is won Golden Gloves.
Yeah, actually, and for the first time in his career, Nolan Arenado will not win the National League Gold Glove, which is absolutely crazy to think about. This is his 11th year in the MLB, and he has won the NL Gold Glove every single year. And now year 11 doesn't even get a nomination, which is, I talked about a lot of its namesake at this point. I don't care if you don't give it to him. You got to put Nolan Arenado at least on the finalist at that point. Like, if you're going to end his streak, like, at least get him on the finalist. Like, come on. Like, you don't have to give it to him, but to end it, this right away, the season hasn't even ended yet and his streak already ended.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's been absolutely wild to see that come to an end. But and I'm all for the changing of the guard too, right? I'm all for it, but like we're trying to see it as, and you know what? So the Dog Training Plus, I was actually about to go here with this, and I don't like to drop CRJ all the time, but this was true. I remember this. And how do I know this? Is because the certain person who made 3 errors reminded me that he only made 3 errors and didn't win MVP or Gold Glove that year. So again, that's what I'm saying about its perception, about how guys go out there. And I think we're at a day and age where Arenado, the name was always going to be thrown out there, but people already knew how good he was. Now it's who's this next wave? Who's the next wave of being that guy? But just like when you're voting for the Hall of Fame, and yes, you would like to believe that the best players are always going to be voted in. That's why they have a certain threshold. It really is going to be, what do people value? And sometimes not every finalist or every award winner is fitting the same value that each voter has.
Like, should there be some sort of system in which voting isn't a thing? Because like the popularity vote doesn't necessarily always indicate merit. Like, should there just be certain stats that players make that, okay, here's the criteria, you make this, then you're in, right? Like, rather than making it political, rather than having like a public or popularity contest, just make it stats based and then give them the award based off that stats. Like, why, if that was the case, we wouldn't be having this conversation today.
Yeah.
I'll even say this. There's still the debate in the Hall of Fame, by the way, on if guys should be in there, if they're steroid users or not. And there was a point in time where players didn't get votes because they played in the steroid era. And like guys for me, and I know people say, well, Dad, are you talking about your dad, Ryan? Well, like, that's one guy, but like, but throw that aside, Ken Griffey Jr., I don't know how he didn't get 100% of the votes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Mariano Rivera, 100% deserved it, right? And I was so happy to see that. But when we're looking at it, people have different reasons of why they don't think a guy should be voted into the Hall of Fame. That's where we're kind of at with this. But hey, everyone, Orioles fans, relax. Why? Gunnar Henderson's the AL Rookie of the Year. Just take it to the bank. If it's not, then you can be all over the place, destroying the web. Because
we'll have some conversations then. Yeah. There will be a lot of videos put out if that does not happen. I can guarantee that.